Straight like close to the heart of the crowd. We're flipping the script, turning it around. Every voice we hear, every soul we find has a spark of truth that can change your mind. It's the reversal, turning it all upside down. The reversal, truth from the lost and found. Hope in the heartbreak, light in the rain. The reversal, you'll never see the same again.
Welcome, everybody, to our season finale in this run of 8 episodes of the Reversal podcast, sponsored by TELUS STORYHIVE. And as always, we're joined by a wonderful guest. And it was really important to us as we finished the series that we would have somebody who we deeply respect, who understood the kind of storytelling that has taken place all across this series, that has had a personal experience in walking alongside people who are vulnerable, but who possess incredible wisdom and truth, but also somebody uniquely who has the ability to take a macro view, a sort of 30,000-foot view of the challenges, of the issues at stake to our society. And so today's guest is Loyal Wooldridge. Welcome, Loyal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us. And Loyal is a well-respected advocate, politician, voice for many of those that we have highlighted across this series. Loyal has represented our community here in Kelowna and the Okanagan at a civic level. He's a city councillor. He's been a member of the regional district. He's a chairman of the regional district. Yeah. And also being a candidate in our political process at a provincial level. And so Loyal has a unique way of not just approaching the challenges that our society and community face, but he has a unique insight as well. So Loyal, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us.
And thanks for those kind words.
Oh, man, we're so glad that you could join us. This is fun for us.
Well, hopefully we can have some nuggets.
Yeah. Well, that's the power of editing, right? We can definitely make sure that we do.
Check out the blooper reel afterwards.
That's right. Yeah.
I think what you also missed was twice he received Chamber of Commerce 40 under 40, top 40 under 40. You received the Broadcaster Award for your I Am Me anti-bullying thing program. And you've gotten some accolades through the times. But I think what I love most about you and that people see is that you are authentic and walk with integrity to being a values-driven leader.
Thank you. And it's the people that you surround yourself with that allow you to do that. And so I don't just do it on my own. There's been a whole plethora of people behind me that have taught me, that have shown me, that have taught me how to lead. Mm-hmm. And like we've known each other now for 20 years, half my life, starting in a salon chair. And here we are doing a podcast. So
I love it. I love it.
And I'll just add to that too, Lowell, that I think for me, one of the things that has always stood out is that you have always been authentic, but accessible. I consider you somebody that's a friend, but also, you are an example of somebody who serves our community, and you are not, you're not unattainable or sort of unreachable. I really appreciate that. I think we've been friends for probably 15 out of those 20 years. And it's always been so helpful and amazing to be able to approach you and go, hey, we're thinking of doing this, or we're trying to achieve something in the community, and you're always right there willing to participate or support. So thank you.
It's an honor.
Yeah. Thanks.
So before we jump into the conversation about systems, politics, and all that kind of stuff, Loyal, I want to know, how are you showing up today as a human being? Not as a city councillor, not as an advocate, but just as yourself.
I was thinking about this interview when you sent over the questions earlier, and normally I'd go through and I'd put in a bunch of points around the point I wanted to make through and get to at the end of the interview. But today I wanted to show up authentically and just share with what I think listeners and viewers actually want to take away from this conversation. So, we're filming this earlier in the year of 2026. It'll probably come out a little bit later. So I'm feeling very refreshed heading into a new year. It's always an exciting time, I think. But overall, I'm just showing up to kind of share my own personal lived experience, and hopefully we can take away some nuggets there that folks can really resonate with.
Yeah, thanks. For those of you, maybe this is your first episode and you've never tuned in before. So the Reversal podcast was started on this notion that we believe that there's tremendous truth and wisdom and profound beauty to be found in some of the least likely places, amongst and alongside and with and from the own lived experience of people that perhaps society have turned their back on. And so Loyal and Sandy and myself are no strangers to that reality. And so Loyal, I guess one of my questions is there a story, or is there a memory that you can recall where maybe for the first time that idea that affected you, that maybe your understanding of an issue or maybe your encounter with an individual changed the way you thought about where beauty, wisdom, truth might be found?
So before I entered public service, I owned hair salons and I was a hairstylist. That was my former career before I went down this path. And through that career, I had hundreds, if not thousands, of people sit in my chair for many, many years that came from all walks of life. We had very wealthy people to people that could only come once a year because they got a gift certificate at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And it allowed me to really see and experience people from all different walks of life. And it also forced me to kind of shapeshift, if you will, to adjust how I'm listening, how I'm absorbing information, to really understand who people are. And so that really shaped who I am today. I would say that my passion around social challenges in our community came when my mom died in 2016, 10 years ago this year, when I myself was facing obviously trauma as well as some mental health issues, and had a really hard time navigating the system myself. And I come from a place of privilege. I have resources. I'm a white male. And I was 30 years old at the time, and I had a hard time navigating it. Mm-hmm. And when I went through that, it really opened my eyes to the challenges we see on our streets throughout North America, not just in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, but across North America. Yeah. And I thought, if I'm experiencing that from where I'm coming from, if someone's less advantaged than me, how hard is it for them? Mm-hmm. And that's what really put me on my path to public service. But overall, it's that connection with people and approaching everyone from a point of curiosity rather than judgment.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I love that. That's definitely, when I think of you, that's front and center. That's one of your unique traits, is that I think you're always curious. So not that I need to affirm what you're already saying about yourself, but I could say I definitely have experienced that even in myself, right? That you're always innately curious, and I appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
So people in the margins, mm-hmm. people from a different walk of life, what have you learned from them?
Complexities. And I think that whenever you're looking at major challenges, whether it's in life or in a community, you can't just look at one thing and think there's a single answer or a single reason why we've come to where we are. And so I think it's really important that when we look at big challenges, we break everything apart to understand the complexities that have led us there. Understanding the history of it is super important, but then where everyone interconnects is equally as important, because every lived experience has a different part to play in what led us here. And earlier on, I spoke about this being a North American challenge, because mm-hmm. when I've traveled to Europe, for example, I'm always looking to see what social issues they face. And I don't see the degree of social issues on the street, from addiction, that we see here in North America. Mm-hmm. And then you start to look at the interconnectivity of family in mm-hmm. Europe mm-hmm. and their social systems in Europe. And you can start to see how in North America, we've become disconnected from one another, and we start to other people. And for me, that is one of the biggest complexities of the challenges we face here in North America is this isolation and othering people and segregating it off. And I think since COVID, it's only amplified that, and it's gotten a little bit worse.
Politics can't fix that, though.
Absolutely not.
So you're talking about isolation. That's an individual's choice in some ways.
Yeah.
The breakdown of the family unit is another one. So when
Or close community in its many forms,
Yeah,
whatever that
or
is.
close
yeah.
community in whatever forms. Yeah. I mean, like, I see that, like, even just being here in Kelowna, there is one ethnic group that you don't see on the street.
Right. Exactly.
There's one man that I see hanging out downtown, but he always strikes me because he's the only one of his ethnicity that I have seen that has been homeless.
Right.
But even then, he has people that come down and see him.
Yeah.
So how, as a politician who wants to get reelected, and I'm not saying that this is what you're doing, but like, how is that conundrum handled at a political level?
Well, what's broken in the political level is that decisions are based on who's going to donate the most and what voter bloc is going to vote for you.
So economic
And vote-based. And that's where the system is really fractured, because you are just forgetting about a whole other, you're forgetting about a vast majority of folks that might not even get out and vote. And so that's really unfortunate, because then our policy is shaped by populism. It's shaped by the opinions of the ultra rich. And that's something that we have to overcome. And people don't enter this realm to be unpopular.
They become unpopular.
But they can become unpopular. They can.
Yeah.
And I've always said that, this isn't a career for me, and I can be unelected every 4 years. I can, be fired by the people of Kelowna every 4 years when we have an election. And I think it's important that we encourage people to step up in elections, to actually do the good work that public servants should be doing. We've lost that decorum. Even in provincial and federal politics, the opposition has not become a body that makes legislation or policy better. It's just become a place to bitch, pardon my words. Whereas before, it was about making things better and offering suggestions around how legislation could change. So we're seeing this globally, and I think this happens when there's this equilibrium that has to happen. It swings from left to right. And most voters and most people in Canada, I believe, are in that center that want to see people taken care of and our economy do well.
And and I think unfortunately it's often the minority voices that get heard on extreme ends of both spectrums, right? And they dominate the airwaves and they dominate the headlines.
Yes.
But I think there's a core group in the middle largely that would agree that, they want people cared for. They want people included. I'm curious, because of your unique perspective, like, what do you think, when, maybe you've seen this happen, maybe you haven't, but like, what happens, do you think, when systems are impacted or informed by the margins rather than just responding to the margins?
Well, I think that obviously you end up with a better result when you have consultation and it's actually built into what you're creating. And that's not just in homelessness strategies, but that comes to official community plans. It comes to neighborhood consultations. When you can integrate in the people that live in community into what you're building, it's a stronger end result always. But you also have to take into account that there's multiple voices and that it can't just be the ones that have the resources to have letter writing campaigns do all the time, or, have the ear of a chamber of commerce so that they can be the ones in the door at City Hall. It's not lost on me that people experiencing homelessness probably aren't going to email me and book an appointment with me at City Hall and share with me their experience over the holiday season.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it'll probably be someone from a wealthier area that doesn't want infill development that's emailed me 9 times last year that wants to have yet another meeting about how, townhomes are going to destroy neighborhoods.
No, for sure. And I mean, it happens all the way through where, I mean, even in our education system, I've got, my youngest child in high school right now. It's clear to me that, the loudest voices, the most entitled voices often get the sway of the space and the attention of the teacher in the classroom. And that behavior tends to carry on into society.
Yeah, it does.
As we go.
Yeah.
So loudest voices. If the loudest voices are the ones that are being heard, who's missing from the table of decision making?
I would definitely say that anyone that is not the majority of the decision makers sitting around the table.
Okay, so let's get specific. In Kelowna, who needs to be at that table?
Well, when we talk about social challenges, I firmly believe that youth is always the answer. When people have reached an extreme level of brain injury and overlapping trauma and are living on the streets, it becomes very challenging to rehabilitate. But where I think our biggest advantage is getting younger voices around the table around what actually matters and how we build communities into the future. We spend a lot of time at our council talking about parking, for example. And we had some university students attend a public hearing that wrote us a feedback letter after they'd attended numerous meetings. And they said, we're living in our parents' basement. All I want is a rental unit to move into. I don't really care about having a parking spot. I just want a safe place. And that's close to transit, and I can put my bike and store it safely.
Right.
I don't care about granite countertops. I don't care about parking. I don't care about all these amenity spaces you want to build. I want to move out of my parents' house.
Right. Yeah.
And I think when you consider these voices, that's where you find these nuggets. They're the ones that are going to be sitting in these chairs long after me.
Yeah.
And youth for me is where we really need to start. And then, breaking it down from there, we need more women representation and different ethnicities sitting around that table, because that's where you start to see where the gaps are and where you start living in your own echo chamber.
Right.
If you don't have those voices to challenge you.
Yeah. Cause I think this is a really interesting segue into this notion of responsibility versus ignorance, right? Which is where, so having those voices at the table is so important. And someone like you take the time to go and listen to those voices and you spend time with them and you're impacted and affected by them. I mean, I know you are, because we've had those conversations. And then I think it must be interesting, and I'm not asking you to name names, but it must be interesting to be in an environment where to some degree, some people do live in that echo bubble, that echo chamber, that bubble, and yet they're at the table of decision-making. To what extent do you feel that tension between responsibility, because you have heard those voices, you hear the youth, you hear a lot of the folks who are vulnerable, you've taken time to represent them and advocate for them. I would love every council member, every politician, every MP to feel that they truly aren't ignorant. But I think I know for myself, once I've had those conversations, I've been impacted by those people, I feel like I can't look away. I don't, there's a sense of responsibility. Do you feel that? And how does that play out for you day to day?
I think sense of responsibility is the key there, Lawrence, because it's not lost on me that I get to sit in rooms that most people don't get to sit in. I get to go to Victoria and sit directly with the Premier and talk about some of these challenges. And with that comes a responsibility to continually represent the voices and those that have supported me, whether they voted for me or not.
Right.
It can be exhausting to be a minority voice, but you have to continually encourage people to expand their perspective. And probably the biggest tool is that of influence. And just as we can't other people with lived experience, we can't other those that are of the majority either, because then
That's a good point.
You lose their buy-in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, hey, if you have an extra 2 hours, come out with me on an outreach walk. Oh, that's scary. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Well, how about you come with me and we just do an hour and go talk to some people. And so there is that responsibility to represent, but there's also the biggest influence, which is to influence other people and to encourage them to expand their perspectives. But I will say that does get tiring, right?
How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah.
Sorry?
How do you take care of yourself in that? I mean, because you are onslaughted all the time, but yet you're still doing it.
It's if you can't take care of yourself, it's like putting the oxygen mask.
Yeah.
You can't help other people. And
Right.
so I do travel, I take time off, and I have to do that without feeling guilty about doing it. You know, sometimes I'm going to miss a council meeting because I'm spent and I need to take some time away, spend it with family and spend it with friends to reset. Last term, this is my second term on council, I read every single piece of correspondence that came in every single day.
Wow.
And it got very wearing on me because it was, you know, homelessness, addiction, homelessness, housing, homelessness, safety. And when you're reading, you know, 50 of these letters a day,
Overwhelming.
it gets to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so you just have to structure your life in a way that can create space that for me as the person and separate it there. Like I don't have, my city email doesn't actually go to my cell phone. I have to intentionally log in to my iPad and check that on a daily basis. And the same with my city number. I put really strong boundaries in terms of when that's turned on and when it's not. And you just have to do that. Otherwise you can't, it's not sustainable.
Right. That's great.
Probably a good example for everybody, actually.
Yeah, I was thinking that's
Hey, I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. That's a great takeaway.
No, I mean, I think, I have multiple email accounts, but I've got to the point where I'm starting to think about separating, you know, they don't get to all notify me all the time.
Yes, that's a very good way.
But yeah.
Well, I want to encourage you that one of our previous guests, Annie, she was homeless for a number of years. And she absolutely loves the Stewart skating rink.
She does. Okay.
She is down there every single morning. She's housed now, and like she has this great story. And I keep thinking, I should just write this story and send it to the city because they need to know that the creation of that and the Christmas tree and just that space is so life-giving to her. Like the skating rink is her happy place, that she has created community on the ice with other people, where last year she made friends with a young man who was an immigrant from India. He was learning to skate, wasn't in a great situation in his house, spent hours there. She befriended him. He's now gone back to India, but he was doing
She taught him to skate.
She taught him to
Amazing.
skate.
Now he's looking for ice in Punjab so he can keep skating.
I know, because it was so good. But like, those are the stories that I want to encourage you with, like that kind of stuff does make for a happy city.
It truly does. And for context, for those of you that might not know the Stewart Park Ice Rink,
Well, that's a good point.
It actually used to be a parking lot on our lakefront in Kelowna. And part of the biggest controversy, this was before my time, of turning it into a free outdoor ice rink was the fact that it was a parking lot and we were going to lose parking. So we're back to that theme again. But Council of the Day, actually, they had the foresight to move ahead with this free ice rink, which anyone can access, and it's fully lit. And now we have a brand new Christmas tree, which was my biggest priority. Not my biggest priority, but
Well, it's beautiful.
Wanted to
And
see
it's
it done
in our
this year.
video because we film Annie skating.
oh, amazing!
Yeah.
And then
Amazing.
the Christmas trees in the background all lit up because we were there at 7:30 in the morning or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened to be one of the blusteriest,
Oh, it was
most
terrible. It was
stormy mornings
raining.
ever. But it's all very atmospheric. But it was great. I mean, again, if you have 55 letters of complaints, I think we need to be better as a community of sending
Absolutely.
you at least one or two
Okay, I promise you I'll write a letter
on a
to
regular
the city
basis.
council and let them know about that
Perfect.
story.
Yeah, good stories of thanks. And
Yeah.
we need to do that
Yeah.
better.
So in working within the system, like you have your boundaries, you're making change, you're committed to being a values-based leader. It's a pretty bureaucratic, slow, hard to change system. How do you navigate that in trying to create meaningful change?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you have to be a problem solver. And that was probably my biggest frustration joining council in the first place, is getting in the realm of government where you have accountabilities in terms of transparency and in terms of timelines, and things have to be advertised for proposals and things like that, that you just have to get used to. But what I will say is that when there is a majority of decision makers on board, things can move quite quickly. And we've seen that in some of our rapid responses to cold weather sheltering, for example, that we pulled together shelter operators around one table and deployed, while an imperfect, still a solution within 7 days.
Wow.
That was informed by shelter operators that work with vulnerable populations. So it can happen. It's again about that influence of getting people on board to see the humanity around what we're serving. And it's also important to acknowledge that people are also frustrated with social issues. We are experiencing some prolific offenders in Kelowna, that some are experiencing homelessness, and businesses are fed up and tired and reaching decision fatigue. And from my perspective, the worst thing we can do is start to other those people. Right. And say, well, there's a different social contract if you're experiencing homelessness than if you are housed. And people start to feel that divide of, well, why is there one set of rules for this group versus that group?
That's a good point.
And that is something we have to work on, for sure. We've got 15 people in Kelowna that are responsible for over 1,300 interactions with police in a year. That's a small minority of people. But because some of them are experiencing homelessness, it then broad brushes everyone that sleeps in a tent with that same label. So there's overlapping jurisdictions of the province that's responsible for the majority of this, and obviously the federal government from a criminal code perspective. But we hear it the most because we're closest to the people. We have our cell phone numbers on the city website. So it's our responsibility to bring those other levels of government along with us. And they do listen. And when we advocate in a way that's not adversarial, but we come forward with a solution, things can actually move quite quickly. And we've seen success with the repeat violent offender program, which Kelowna was a pilot for. We've seen our violent crimes reduce significantly. We're still seeing a lot in terms of property crime and repeat property crime, of course. But in terms of bodily harm and those other violent offenses, there was about 17 people that needed to be monitored, and we've seen those drastically reduce because of programs that we advocated for from a local level that made policy change provincially. So things can change, but it takes perseverance. And I would say staying on message and not asking for a million different things when there's a new person in your ear saying another solution.
Right. What? That happens?
Every single day.
More than once a day, I bet.
What the last word is yours every time.
So this is a great transition point, because this episode, like I said, is it's the bookend to our this season of 8 episodes, and the title we had for this episode was "So What Now?" Right, and this is like, we've heard all these stories, we've been challenging perspectives. So what now? And you're a perfect person. This conversation is wonderful for this. And I guess with all your experience over these years at different levels as a business owner, in leadership, in the community and so on, I'm wondering, just even what you were talking about right now, what is a different way we should be asking questions, or what new questions should we be asking when you think about all those people perhaps who are watching or listening and they're writing to their civic leaders or their MPs, should we be asking questions differently to our leaders rather than just writing letters of complaint or something?
Well, back to my original point around the complexities of these mammoth challenges, I think it's the responsibility of everyone to educate themselves and understand the history and the background of what's actually been going on. Right. And that's probably where I get the most frustrated in my seat is, tell us what you're doing about this. Okay, well, there's a whole landing page on the city website that talks about homelessness and the investments that we've made. And factually, Kelowna has led the charge significantly in social change in British Columbia. We're not there yet. We're not perfect by any stretch, and there's still a lot of issues, as we've already talked about. So I think number one is the responsibility for people to become educated. Number two is to actually get involved when there are public consultations, is to show up, listen to the experts, and then share your perspective on what can change. And then third is getting everyone around the table. And sharing lived experience isn't just about lived experience of homelessness, but that's lived experience of police officers. That's lived experiences of social agencies that deliver the services. And through our homelessness strategy, Journey Home, that's, I believe, one of the biggest strengths of creating that was getting cohorts of all different aspects of the community around the tables to integrate that into the solutions.
Yeah.
It's a moving target. Social issues are a moving target. You throw a global pandemic in, it changes the tone.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
lived experience perspectives is from everyone involved, not just one singular group.
Yeah, I want to thank you too, because I think you've led the charge and your colleagues in showing that lived experience is not something, it's, it can often be leveraged in a sort of symbolic way rather than as an honoring, informing learning opportunity. And I think you have done a great job of actually taking the latter and not the former and just checking a box, and I participated in the Journey Home process, and it was really meaningful. And I think it changed a lot of perceptions in our city, in the public eye. But yeah, like you, I tend to get frustrated when I'm in conversations and I know that people haven't done any reading. They've not bothered to educate themselves and they're pontificating. And I go, yeah, I want you to have a broader perspective, and what would it look like if, we went for a walk and met a few people, or let's read or watch this podcast or whatever it happens to be. And I can imagine, that's probably a daily challenge in your world.
And I understand it, right? Like when you're a business owner and your window's been smashed 3 times in a year, or you're showing up to work and there's defecation on your front entryway, or you have to clear a tent, I understand the frustration. And for me, that's why in my brain, how I operate, probably my ADHD, is self-regulating to, again, pick apart the complexities of the issue so that you can not just focus on your frustration of the problem, but start to look at, okay, well, what's led us here? What are some of the things that I can do actively to change that? And it might be just something simple. It might be just taking a break to cool off.
Yeah. Go have a cup of tea or something.
Go have a cup of tea. But I think sometimes we just got to step back and really analyze things a little bit differently.
I watched a podcast the other day that was talking about the power of the pause, which I think is so important. I think that when it's one-on-one dialogue or even public dialogue, or feeling that pressure that you have to respond or come up with a solution, even systemically, to be able to be comfortable enough to say, we're going to pause, we're not going to purposely drag this out, but we're just going to take some time to think about this and to do some reflecting, some learning, or some self-regulation. I think we have become a society that feels this pressure to instantly give solutions and responses, and it's to our detriment, I think.
Yeah, it's when I was campaigning a year and a half ago, we were doing reels on Instagram and TikTok, and my campaign team would say to me, okay, well, you have about 90 seconds to explain your solution to homelessness. And you have to do it in an engaging way, and this has to be done in under 90 seconds because that's all people are going to watch this reel for.
Oh, wow.
And actually, they only watch it for about 17 seconds. So in this world of social media and information consumption where folks are experiencing at such a high rapid rate, it becomes more challenging for sure, especially with these real complex.
You got to capture them in 17 seconds.
Exactly.
On a complex issue.
Yeah.
And that's all the ones without ADHD.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right. You got 11 seconds.
Otherwise, you've got 8 seconds or something, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to lob something that might be slightly controversial.
Okay.
So
I love when people say this. I wonder how controversial we'll get.
Yeah.
Okay, so within the city of Kelowna, there are agencies that work with the city, with the municipality in this homelessness area. And there's a breakdown in the social agencies.
Okay.
And one in particular, but that has a big influence on other agencies. You can't fix that agency.
Right.
Because it's outside of your parameter. But then there's also a whole nother dynamic in our community, which is the faith community.
Yeah.
Which, some are involved, but most are not.
Right.
Right? Like I know the Sikhs do their feeding and Metro does their hygiene center and the Gospel Mission does the meals and that kind of stuff.
And the shelter.
And the shelter. So in an ideal community,
you get to pick an ideal community.
you're gonna cast your perfect ideal community for Kelowna. What does that look like? Because you're dealing with interior health, you're dealing with municipal, provincial, federal, faith-based people, and just your regular Joe.
You know, it's a quagmire for sure, because again, overlapping agencies, people looking to help. I kind of go back to the business book, Good to Great, and what is each agency the best at delivering? And unfortunately, in the social sector, people are always chasing a grant. They might not be a housing operator, but they get into operating housing because there's a big grant for it. They might not be into food service, but there's a food delivery service. And so I think we really have to boil it down to, okay, what is each agency really great at doing? And let's get them focusing there. Let's fund them for that, and do it consistently. The system right now in terms of funding for grants is broken in that way. You make these agencies.
So we're going to fix the funding system.
The funding system is one thing,
okay,
for sure. But then we also have to create buy-in. And as a queer person, part of the reconciliation that I've had to do is with faith. I've had a lot of growing up bad experiences with churches. And through my own growth, that's something that I've had to reconcile. And now I go to events with different faith-based organizations, and I don't feel uncomfortable to be in those rooms. But we have to recognize that there's probably reconciliation that people need to do with those agencies as well, that they might not feel safe engaging with them.
And not just the queer community. I mean, the Indigenous community
is similar.
Very similar.
I obviously can't speak from that perspective because I'm not Indigenous, but just from my own experience, that's something that we have to recognize, is that there are barriers culturally and experientially that might be inhibiting that engagement. But I think at the end of the day, it's making sure everyone's doing what they should be doing in terms of what they're great at, and then getting people around the table somehow to be having those courageous conversations to bridge that gap. I would definitely say government's a whole other beast,
right? Yeah,
because it depends on who's in power and what are their ideologies, and we can go down election cycles and how 4 years you're basically just chasing your tail, and what you run on you generally don't necessarily end up working on.
Well, and can you actually create meaningful change in a 4-year period?
I think,
like in small instances, like the cold weather protocol, that kind of stuff, of course, you can rally it in 7 days and make a difference. But overall, if
you're talking about systemic change, are you saying, is it too much to ask our politician or expect of our politicians?
I think it is. I think it's unrealistic. I'm not looking for a dictatorship or anything, but
well, I think right now with our Canadian government, we're being shown that change can happen quite rapidly when you've got a fire lit under you and you don't have any other choice to do it. I think people in general can do that, and systems in general can do that. COVID showed us that you can actually deploy funds quickly without all these cumbersome bureaucratic registrations and such. Is it done perfectly when it's done that quickly? No. But the systems can change. It means having the courage to be able to do it. Unfortunately, with 4-year terms, and I don't think that's ever going to change, it's about electing the right people that are going to share in the mindset to actually be solutions driven and not just drive us backwards. So it can be done. But again, it's electing the right people to do it.
Well, and systems are made of people. At the end of the day, systems are made of people.
Yes.
So Loyal, we're gonna wrap this up. We want to respect your time. We know you're busy, but before you go, 2 questions. The first one is more about your future and just kind of what you're dreaming about, thinking about, and imagining kind of where you kind of some of the stuff you want to be about. And then the last question we always ask our guests is there something they're reading or some kind of thing that's really impacted them lately? So let's start with the first one. And that's like, 2026, 2027, kind of where are things going for you? What are you dreaming about? Where do you want to have an influence, make an impact?
So for me, I've embarked on a master's degree in emergency management and crisis communication. Specifically,
you did a good job, by the way, on the fires.
Oh, thank you.
A couple of years ago. Yeah,
Thank you. And that's actually what ignited, if you will, my passion into this. I showed up at our sheltering space, which was our local arena where people were sleeping. And those experiences in homelessness were turned away. And weren't allowed to shelter in the same place that everyone else was sheltering that was then experiencing homelessness. And I started to see this breakdown again in our systems in terms of our emergency management, in terms of how when emergencies and crisis happened, the marginalized communities are affected the most because they're starting lower.
Right.
They're starting with no housing.
Yeah. They're starting behind the starting line.
And it just got me thinking, like, oh my gosh, if people that are housed that are now unhoused are sleeping in an arena, and now people that were in supportive housing are now even less housed, how broken is the system? And that's just in Canada. If we start to look at other areas of the world that are dramatically affected by climate change right now and famine and drought, it's only going to intensify. So my future is looking ahead into the crisis communication and disaster management side of things. And I'm excited about that because, again, it's helping and it's serving people, but also understanding from that psychosocial economic perspective. So that's what my future is looking like. Politically, I don't know yet. We'll see. I'm definitely not done with elected life, but we'll see what the future has there.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that.
And the book.
Yes. Anything that you've kind of read.
I just finished A Different Kind of Power by Jacinda Ardern, who's the former Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Right.
Who made the decision to step down 7 months out from their federal election, coming out of COVID. And one thing that really stuck with me that she said when she resigned was that she didn't feel she had enough gas in the tank if there was another crisis, that she could adequately lead the country through that. Not that she couldn't get through it, but she didn't have enough gas to actually get them through it. Mm-hmm. And I think in leadership, that's something we always have to reflect on is, do I need to take a step back to recharge my battery, fill my tank, or in life in general?
Yeah.
Do I have enough to give 110% of what I need to do, or should I take some time to rest?
That's a humble answer.
It is.
That's a real
she's a truly inspirational character on so many levels.
She is. And her message around kindness, and as corny as that can sound, I think is really what we're missing in our communities is acknowledging where people are at, but also expressing some sort of kindness. And when we can do that, it'll move us forward in a more positive and united way, and hopefully break down some of this fractured culture that's been created in the last 5 years. Yeah.
Well, Loyal, thank you. Thank you for your time. It's so good to have you with us.
My pleasure. It always goes so fast.
Man,
there's so much to say.
You're so articulate.
Okay, well, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. As corny as it is around kindness and connectedness, that would be my major encouragement for people. And from the political side or the elected side is for people to stay engaged. And that doesn't mean you have to run for office or that you have to work on a campaign per se. But it's everyone's responsibility to be educated around what's going on in your community. It's easy to just gripe about problems, but fully understanding things from a 360-degree view is really important. And that's how we can begin to create positive change in our communities.
I love that. Love your commitment to the positive community too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. All our best as you carry on with challenging all the systems and leading the way you do with kindness. And
thank you for creating this space. It's been awesome to showcase so many great people and share different perspectives. And hopefully those that have watched and listened can take away a few nuggets as well.
Thank you. Good to have you with us.
Thanks.
There we go.
Okay, that was another fire hydrant in the face conversation.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And the fact that it went on another 2 hours after we stopped recording was amazing.
He is, he's inspirational, and he is so dedicated to seeing community thrive and to look beyond just the sort of the obvious, the desktop problems, the binary solutions. He is committed to seeing people included.
Well, I mean, if I have to express a feeling, I would say I actually have hope in the systems.
Yeah.
Right? When you have people like Loyal walking in those places, in those hallways, that are willing to risk, are willing to take the time to listen, to unravel the complexities and acknowledge the complexities. I mean, and he even said so many times how you can't exclude this voice. Like you can't, at the expense of hearing this marginalized voice, you can't exclude this voice over here.
You can't other someone, who are part of the conversation just because they are wealthy, for example.
Yeah. And I loved the whole idea of who's missing at the table was youth.
Right. Yeah. And we ended up having a deep conversation about that after we finished recording. But I think that, so grateful, Loyal, if you're watching, now that you've headed out to your next task, but we're grateful for your time and your willingness to even sit around afterwards and go deep on a couple of topics. I think these things are, you're right. I think when you have a leader who is committed to seeing the next generation be at the table, it does give you hope because he's willing to take the wisdom of experience and also look at the passion and the exuberance and the idealism of youth and want to see them come together. And I really appreciate him for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also really value the whole concept of being able to see the future, look down the road, and actually be okay with tension. And I think his own life experiences have deepened his empathy. And he's a doer, right? I mean, the passing of his mom made it difficult for him. So he went to figure that out. Like if he had trouble navigating the system with all the benefits and privilege, how much harder is that? And then when the fires hit Kelowna in 2023, I mean, he was the voice that went in there and was navigating that as the regional director. I think that's why he was in that position. But that sparked a whole new journey for him into pursuing his master's. Right? Like that is, you're right. He is inspiring.
Yeah. And I really appreciate the courage he has to say, look, things are complicated. They're nuanced, but you can actually get stuff done. And he's willing to break some myths to say not all bureaucracy is bad bureaucracy. There's some hurdles that exist for a reason, but then there's also times when you can work collaboratively to really push through those hurdles and get stuff done for the sake of community. And I think overall, I think the idea of having the marriage of the micro and the macro, the notion that he can say to somebody, come for a walk with me and let's go investigate this for ourselves. Let's go meet some people that you might have never met before that might just challenge some of your preconceived ideas. And then he can also exist at the macro level and talk about systems change. And that takes a certain kind of character and a certain set of skills. Yeah.
Well, and he knows the value and the power of story.
Yeah, I think that he was a great person for us to finish out this series with. So, hey, to all you folks who've watched and tuned in, whether it's on video or on TELUS TV or on YouTube or you just listened on an audio network, we want to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And we hope that as we wrap up this first season of The Reversal, that you'll continue to join us. Because we hope there'll be at least another season and we'll have more conversations and challenge some of our preconceived ideas and that we continue. I don't know about you, but I think for me, this has been a fun journey and I think it has confirmed our our, not suspicion, but our theory that there is incredible beauty and wisdom and truth to be found in the least likely places.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for joining us.
See you soon.
Stories yours to tell.